Hey all. So this is from the recent event, Operation Parabellum, hosted by MilSoft in the village. I'll be honest, I got a ticket for free to come and check out the event, and it was honestly amazing. I'll get into all the details. Sorry it's taken so long to get this video out. My grandpa passed away, sadly, and many other things to deal with since returning from the event. Now, I will state at the time of recording of this video, Parabellum 2 is set to be on June 26, 2021. For anyone that's watching this in the far, far future. And that will be at Artula, I believe it's pronounced, which is only an hour away from Brisbane, which will be great. So check out the page link down below. I will be going to tour with MilSim on the 10th with MilSim Supply Australia, who's kindly sponsored me a ticket to go with his team. So go check them out, links are down below. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and hit that bell notification when a new video is out. Even if YouTube sends it 3 days later. Thanks, YouTube. And also support me on Patreon, so I can have some funds to put into bringing things to the channel. For example, blaster reviews, going to certain events, so on and so forth. It's only $5 a month for you, but it's $5 a month to me that helps me to do things for the channel, because I don't make any money off of this channel. That's how it is. So let's get right into it. There will be timestamps, so if you want to hear a certain kind of area, check that down below. But yes, it's going to be a long video and lots of talking, so I'm going to have some footage from the event going. Anyway, I'll continue now. MilSoft is the balance between LARPing and a skirmish game, with a roleplay if you want aspect. It is designed to be an entry-level friendly, so if you don't want to spend 3 days out in the field or don't have X blaster or X uniforms, then it's not an issue. It's basically MilSim Light. That's why it's called MilSoft. It was held on 600 acres of land, which is located at Suzanne River Homestead, and it was massive and absolutely fantastic. This is the story for the event. 12 hours ago, a Sky Sparrow transport plane was shot down by unknown means. Both sides are, of course, accusing the other of the incident, but while the politicians argue and bicker, the true power brokers are more concerned of the contents of its cargo. The craft was en route from a non-aligned research facility to an as-yet undiscovered location, but intelligence suggests it was carrying some form of nerve agent for further study. The pilot managed to eject before the plane crashed, but the current location is unknown. It has also been reported that a cylindrical object was jettisoned by the craft prior to impact. Both sides are preparing to send clandestine teams into the disputed border zone to recover the pilot, cargo, and the black box recorder. To further complicate matters, there are reports of a third group of hostiles operating within the AO. This group's intent, strength, and goals are unknown at this time. Now, the team actually acquired a plane wreckage for the event that I personally didn't get to see due to a few things that happened and time restraints and the objectives that we tackled. There were also NPCs to interact with and stores to buy items like, for example, claymores or information. I wish I could speak English. It's 3:30 AM. I didn't interact with them because of the tasks I was doing. Now, one thing that everyone worries about with MilSim is the need to have lots of camping gear, and that you sleep on the field and can be attacked at night while you sleep. That's not an issue here. You play for 12 hours and then you go to sleep, either at home if you're nearby, or you go to a hotel, or sleep in your car, or you can camp there and sleep in a tent. I stayed the night in my tent and woke up the next day to a nice hot cooked breakfast, and then got on my way home shortly after and stopped for a nap because I was driving by myself. So one thing I would suggest is take a mate or two with you so that you can take turns driving, for example, and whatnot if it's a good length of time from you. It was 3.5 hours for me, so I would suggest it for those coming from Brisbane. One thing that is compulsory is to be able to carry 3 litres of water on yourself at all times. So I drank 5 litres throughout the day. There were refill points to go to and also points with ice cold water. It was a nice hot and humid day at 33 Celsius and 90% humidity, so it was rough going being in the sun. I had 15 kilos of gear on myself and then a 5 kilo rifle just to punish myself, and I loved it. You think I'm into making myself suffer or something, honestly. Anyways, the MilSim aspect I felt was really good, but it was missing a little bit more. It was almost as if it was a bit light. There was a commander on each team, which if the other team killed and then confirmed with a photo which they would send to HQ, being the admin team, they would receive a cash bonus to spend with NPCs. There were side objectives to achieve, like for example, find a weapon cache, set up a vehicle checkpoint. Now, these were two objectives we went after, and I was mostly on the front lines setting up a position, handling security and keeping an eye out, so on and so forth. So I did not pay a lot of attention to the finer details. I was told, go here, look for some kind of weapons cache, and secure it before the other team. Now, these sides objectives return a cash bonus like the commander kills being confirmed and so on. So there's not a lot of information there because we had some issues during the event, and because the commander was selected as someone that raised their hand. So they weren't someone that was set before the actual event started. So obviously there was going to be some communication issues there. After we secured the first area near our drop point, which was a water/medical station with an NPC named the Doc, we started moving to the next point. We lost one player there for a while due to medical reasons. We walked for a fair while to get to the black market and secure that which red team had already secured. We engaged with them and secured the point, which is when we ran into our issues. We lost radio with the admin team, which was a big issue in case of medical emergency. So we're trying to resolve that, and also red team was spawning far too close to the objective because they got dropped off to make for the time difference from us getting dropped off, because there was enough vehicles to drop off a team one at a time. So they agreed to a ceasefire, and we tried to sort these issues out, and then we had players have heat stroke or heat stress, and so on. So the admin team put a pause to the event, took those away that needed it, resupplied everyone with water and super dupers, which were absolutely amazing, and everyone rested, seeing as it was the early afternoon and was incredibly hot. We then started to move on our own ways. This stopped us for about an hour or two. It was hard to tell because I wasn't keeping track of time. We continued on to our next objective and hit a contact a few times throughout that period till the end of the event, and also letting enemy teams through to respawn and so on, and also a few times to let them pass so they can get to their objective, because it was at times a bit one-sided with our team. So this leads into the next section. What to change and additions to make. So I have passed on my suggestions to the admin team to make some changes and so on and so forth. They will take it as they need to, and so if you have any and you were at the event, contact them and let them know. It's best to let them know these things so they can adapt events and know what people like and don't like. It's sometimes hard to organize these things on the day at short notice or on the fly when something goes wrong, and the team handled it amazingly. So take it with a grain of salt. The admin team is not with us on the ground, seeing everything that is happening, so they can't change things. Now, one thing, for example, maybe breaking down into a more structured team from the get-go to give it a bit more MilSim aspect, and have the admin team take each team aside for their brief and going, okay, command on this freak, squad leaders on this one, and then each squad X and X, maybe send this out in advance so people can program themselves, like when they purchase a ticket or, you know, a week before the event. At the time of recording this, the tickets went live for Parabellum 2, and there is a much more structured squad system for tickets. So get your tickets while you can and grab a few mates, come on out, help support them, help support the community, and helps us grow a little larger. Now, on the day, it was left to us to organize ourselves, which sometimes kind of worked and others not really. Maybe have experienced MilSim players or those with more squad leader or command like real life experience to lead these teams. That was on us, not the admin team. And also on the players to organize ourselves. We're not babies. Most of us there were adults. So some people want constant combat. We had 3 major fights, which were over key locations or just large fights. And I think in total it was just about the perfect mix between fighting and walking, or doing other mission-like things, like talking to NPCs and so on. There was 5 contacts in total, 2 of which were very small. Now, this isn't just to MilSim East, this is to all MilSim hosts. You need to give a minimum of 1.5 months notice so players can book time off and try to get the parts they need in. I hear a lot of people scramble to get their gear for MilSims in a rush because it was announced a short period before, or they have to order it from online, for example AliExpress, or if they're running Russian gear, Grey Shop and so on. Now obviously you need that time so people can get that gear. Now to the players, stay on top of Gelball news, follow fields, go to MilSoft AU, which there is a link for down below for info, or you could join War Crime Primetime down on the link down below, which we'll talk about at a later time, but that's all you'll get for now. I would love to see some buildings in a more permanent format for these fields, but obviously that will be covered in the next section of the video. There isn't too many things to say about what to change. Most of it was around the players, or requires things that I will speak about in the section now. What is needed to expand events to a larger scale? We would all love to have something on the scale of MilSim West in the US, or events in Europe. I think Battlegrounds is one of them. Not too sure, I don't know much about them sadly. But Gelball is still in its infancy, and there's a lot of investment involved in just renting land for a day, let alone 3. Or just finding land that's close enough for people to travel to, because people were complaining about where the events were held because they're too far away, or so on and so forth. One thing you'll just have to suck up is you will have to travel to these events. They're not going to hold them in the middle of the Brisbane CBD, and there's very little land that is as big as Susan River is, and that is close to the CBD, that can be used for Gelball. Most of it's privately owned, or farms, or so on. Some of the other costs, for example, fuel for vehicles and food and so on, I don't think that renting some vehicles like APCs or infantry transport trucks or so on would be very cheap, let alone easy to find in Australia. We don't have that stuff like they do in the US, so don't expect things of this scale anytime soon. I'm sure if there are companies or individuals that want to invest a very large sum of cash into these events, or land or gear or vehicles, I'm sure it would help. Or if, for example, all the MilSim hosts came together and ran one massive event and ran uniformed rules across all of their events, bar of course if someone wants to run weapon restrictions or uniform or gear restrictions, for example. But having the same medical system across all events would be a great help to stop confusion and so on. If the community remains to be the only ones that helps to fund these events, then we will be staying small scale for a large amount of time. And you have to remember, this is all new to Australia. For example, the gear community hasn't really been a massive thing like it is now in Australia, and everything is new. So until we start to get huge cash injections into these events and sort out as many of the bugs as we can to streamline these events, things won't change. It takes time, money, and I've also heard about the turnouts of some of these events. There needs to be more people going to them. You can't fix bugs if there's no one playing. And I've heard that they've had very low numbers because people don't want to travel far. There is a solution, and that is just to grab your mates, grab your gear, and drive to the event. Or find someone that can take you. Make friends. This sport is honestly fantastic for it. Now, if all the MilSim hosts ran events together for example, a 3-month rotating roster. You get one every 3 months, so you get like 2 months notice in advance, and so on and so forth. For example, Field runs their view with the standard medical rules and kind of hit rules and so on, but gear and blaster rules are different. And then Field 2 runs their idea, and Field 3 runs theirs, and this will allow people to have an event to go to often, and also more choice, as well as running these sports tags for the red and blue team. Absolutely amazing choice. Doesn't break the immersion, but helps identify other teams and friendlies. It's honestly a cheap, easy solution besides having this team runs X camo, this team runs X camo. Because not everyone's a gear nerd like the rest of us. But the next part is standardization, as I was talking about. Understand everyone has their own take on MilSim and what it should be, but I believe if the community separates and segregates themselves, as has happened in some cases, and we don't see groups working together to achieve the same goals, which I have seen, and some things have turned out amazing because of it, and then everyone reaches some kind of agreement where everyone can be happy and we all think about the players, then we will continue to remain small. If all the event holders come together and standardize the rules, as I said earlier, and say up 4 runs, you know, EMR or, you know, ATAX. I know ATAX is a highly disputed one because everyone runs ATAX and whatnot. And, you know, an easy one is independent, is civvies for, you know, flat colors or like camo bottom, flat top, and so on and so forth. Maybe even make them wear ATAX, and then remove the restrictions on X Blast for X Team. It will alleviate some of the things that turn people off of events, because there's not a huge selection of choices for blasters, and some, as we know, are not great, which is why the M4 platform has been dominating the market. There's a lot of them, it's easy to make, and a lot of them are really good. And also, not everyone can afford a $400+ AK. But in closing, come together and start going to events. Don't be it's best my way or the highway. Try other events. Maybe there's something you'll like about that one, but you can't really complain about something if you're not part of it. So go to the events. I'll be going to the Toowoomba MilSim on the 10th of April, happily sponsored by MilSim Supply Australia, who has kindly sponsored me a ticket to go with this team. So go check out them on the links down below. But thanks all. Sorry, I know it was a lot of talking and boring footage, and it's just taking me ages, so thank you for being patient. I'm trying to make videos when I can, but I haven't been playing as much because of life and just funds. Still unemployed, sadly, because coronavirus or something goes wrong. You know, whatever, I'll be trying to get out more and play when I can. If you see me, come up and say hi. Anyway, love ya. Mwah.